Amagi Metals, where financial freedom is yours.
Welcome everyone to the Amagi Metals interview series. Today we're very happy to be hosting a special guest, Jeff Berwick, who is the creator and editor-in-chief of The Dollar Vigilante, a resource of financial news and commentary regarding the collapse of the U.S. monetary system. I've been reading Jeff's work for years and find his free market tone and true anarchist philosophy as very refreshing, and I'm really glad that you could join us today for an interview, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, Megan. Always a pleasure.
And it's kind of funny, I had prepared a question, my first question for you today, and then one of the top articles on Reddit Bitcoin involved this subject matter. And something I've noticed in a lot of your writing that I think goes a long way is that you're kind of creating your own language. You shy away from using a lot of conventional terminology, like instead of saying taxation, you use the word looting. And just today there was, a news story on MSNBC or CNBC where they said that consumers are now hoarding too much. So I just wanted to know, do you think your terminology and what you're practicing in your writing is going to catch on, and what do you think about what their doublespeak today?
Yeah, well, I think it's very important, and not many people realize that the words are incredibly important. They're incredibly powerful, and that's actually how they can really affect people and actually make things that are horrible sound not too bad, and things that are not too bad sound horrible. You brought up taxation. No, it's just taxation. It's not extortion. It's not theft. It's taxation. It's just the way it is. And of course, whenever the U.S. government finds somebody that's on a terrorist watch list and they find them in their house, the house goes from being a house into a compound. And they just keep using these things over and over. So I don't know if I consciously realized it or unconsciously realized it quite a while ago, and I just started saying things the way they are. So I call prime ministers prime murderers. I call taxes extortion. I call someone getting arrested and put in jail, I call that kidnapping and put in a cage because that's what it is. And it's incredibly important. That's actually kind of funny you brought it up, because I have noticed that started to, I don't know if I affected it, but it might just be human consciousness waking up. That I've started to see a lot more of that, even in more mainstream sort of forums. People are actually calling things what they are. And I think that's actually a huge step for humanity, is to start to actually call things what they are. It's very important, and we're starting to see more of it, which is very heartening. But of course, the mainstream media always uses it just as well, and even more. They're professional at it. They've been doing it for decades now. I think it's really important to call things what they are.
Right, and one very important definition, I think, is calling inflation what it really is, which is printing money. And that is one of the biggest misconceptions in economics, in the financial world. When people hear the word inflation, they think prices are going up. And I think Ron Paul did a really good job at saying, no, it is printing money. And just segueing into what the Dollar Vigilante is all about in terms of everything you guys talk about in the coming collapse, what do you see coming in the near future regarding inflation?
Yeah, I don't even just call it money printing. I call it what it is, counterfeiting money. That's exactly what it is. And you're absolutely correct. That's what they try to do. They try to really skew every word and the meaning of the word to the point where it actually means the opposite of what it is in many cases. And so they've been using, and they really hide this word inflation. They've been trying this forever. They always try to make people believe that inflation is a rise in prices. That is not what inflation is. Inflation is an increase in the money supply. A symptom of inflation is that prices do rise throughout the economy, and they don't actually rise all at the same time, which really confuses people. And of course, they never teach people in any sort of publicly indoctrinated school camps or even in their universities what really inflation is. And this is actually one of the key things that if human beings understood, as I believe it was Ford who said that if people understood the banking system, there'd be a revolution tomorrow. And the biggest thing that people just still don't understand, as you can tell today by fast food workers going into the streets to fight for a $15 minimum wage, they think that they're just getting ripped off by this capitalist system when that's not the case at all. What's happening is there's a massive amount of price rises throughout the economy. And when you have inflation, the prices don't rise equally. And usually the things that rise first are capital and assets and stock markets, as we're seeing today, the stock market at all-time high, even though we have in the U.S. 50 million people on food stamps. One in 6 people in the U.S. on food stamps, 1 in 4 children on food stamps. There's tens of millions on disability, and that's a whole other story. They're not disabled. It's essentially a form of welfare, and that's not even including all the people on welfare. I believe there's about 11 states with more people on welfare that have jobs. And so, yeah, that's how they really confuse people, and they're still trying to do it to this day. They're trying to blame all of the economic problems on a number of things. They blame it on China. Those dirty Chinese, they're producing too much stuff and too cheaply. We don't want that. That'd be terrible if we had really cheap stuff. And they also try to blame capitalism, and that's really what Obama's really good at. And he just said, I believe the other day, I think it was on Labor Day, that if I had a real job, that was interesting, that I would join a union, all this stuff. And unions come about because workers feel pressed because the inflation constantly is robbing from them, and they never know who's actually robbing from them. So it's really important that people realize that.
An interview with Sprott, I think recently, it wasn't with Eric Sprott, but with his media people, and you guys were talking about, is inflation coming or is deflation coming? And I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about that too.
Yeah, it's the old inflation-deflation debate, and I think the debate's long been over by anyone who's really thinking. There's nothing but inflation happening. If you use the proper definition, inflation is an increase in the money supply. I haven't seen any country in the world who's decreased its money supply anytime recently. There's been massive amounts of money supply increases. So people get a little bit confused about all these things. And as well, it's really interesting how many people have been trained, like circus chimpanzees, to believe that if prices were to go down, that's a really bad thing. I can't believe that. And obviously, people just aren't using their brain. They're not using logic. They're not actually rationally thinking. They're just repeating what they get off of their television programming, and it's called programming for a reason. How could anyone really dislike prices going down? You see people on Black Friday, they love it when prices are cheaper. But then when they're told by their mainstream prostitutes that if prices go down, that'll be terrible, they actually repeat that and believe that. And they have to get over that, or they're going to self-destruct.
What I was reading, different readings that I've done through Dollar Vigilante over the past, couple of years that I've been following you guys, because we're talking about a currency collapse with the U.S. dollar, the idea of creating new wealth and increasing your wealth can be a bit more challenging at this point. And you talk a lot about keeping wealth. So can you expand a little bit on how people can keep their wealth and why it's important to think about keeping it rather than increasing it?
We live at the most dangerous time in human history for capital, in my opinion. We've never had an entire planet that is completely covered like a skin disease with fiat currencies that are unbacked by anything and that are printed up at will by people in private boardrooms with beards. Oh, that's my Chihuahua, sorry. That includes Janet Yellen. So, yeah, it's an incredibly dangerous time for capital. You can't tell what the price controls are. Price valuations are. The price, the value of anything has been so skewed by this printing of money, you just can't really tell what has any value. Entrepreneurs can't make decent business decisions. There's massive misallocations of capital because of this, massive confusion. And because of that, and because I also believe we're heading towards a complete currency collapse, the end of the monetary system as we know it, it's very difficult to know where to protect yourself. And there's actually very few places that you can do that and do it properly and have any hope of getting through what I see as probably the biggest collapse and biggest problem in human history.
I want to cover a little bit the Austrian school covers all of these details about what money really is, and that's a lot of what people talk about when they cover gold and silver. But out of a lot of those characteristics that are listed, what do you think is the most important out of gold and silver that make them this asset that you need to hold on to?
Well, the number one most important thing is that it is a hard asset. It is, and has been valued by human history. As far as we know about human history, and we've been lied to about a lot of it, but as far as we can tell about human history, it's always been valued by humans. I don't see that changing anytime soon. And it can't be counterfeited into obscurity. So that is by far the biggest value of precious metals, is that we're going to see almost everything that is paper collapse in the coming years. Definitely fiat currencies, a lot of bonds, if not all bonds, and definitely government bonds. Japanese government bonds is a huge opportunity right now to short, in my opinion. Paper is going to return to its intrinsic value. We've been lied to and misled for over 100 years now, since 1913 at least, with the founding of the heinous criminal terrorist organization known as the Federal Reserve. And slowly over time, they've made people believe that a debt-based backed money printed up on pieces of paper at will with nothing but dead criminals printed on the cover of them and numbers is money. And that is not the case, as we're finding out, and we're really going to find out in the next few years. So that's the real value of precious metals, is that they actually are real. And as long as you can keep them, of course, in the U.S. in 1933, in the land of the free, they made owning gold illegal until about 1973. And there is a chance they might do that again. So that's the downside to precious metals. Is the same as the upside, is that the political system. It's very dangerous. This is a beast that will take down a lot of people. So definitely owning precious metals is incredibly important, but trying to hang on to them through this transition will be something that people need to pay attention to.
And do you have any suggestions for any of the listeners in terms of what specific, gold or silver products that you would suggest to a friend or family member?
I'm fairly agnostic on exactly what forms to own. You and everyone at Amagi Metals is much more of an expert on exactly which form to own it in. But I definitely think owning coins definitely can't hurt. And one of the reasons is, as this monetary system collapses, it's going to be an incredible period of volatility. And there's going to be a period where when these currencies collapse, a trade will almost cease. And if you have money in the form of coins, that will make things a lot easier. Silver coins, for example, I would definitely own some of those, because at the moment it's worth around $20 a coin. And that will obviously go up in value. It probably would be worth well over $200 in today's dollars in the next few years. But even at $20, so you could buy some groceries with it. And then you could have some gold coins as well if you want to pay for your rent or whatever it is. You'll be able to still transact. So having coins is good. Of course, if you have a massive amount of wealth, then of course it doesn't make total sense to own just coins, and you can get into all sorts of other products. But just having having precious metals is really the key.
You've been a proponent of Bitcoin since it was first uncovered. Have your feelings changed at all since the beginning? And are you more or less optimistic for Bitcoin's future?
Yeah, I first found out about Bitcoin in 2011, so I was a little late, although many people say I was very early. It was around $3 at that time. It's now $500. Has my opinion of it changed? Yes. I am now massively more bullish on Bitcoin than I ever have been, because I've seen how it is propagating itself throughout the world. This is more than a money. It is more in a way than transferring value. It is a actual evolution in not only money and banking, but everything. The entire technology behind it, if you understand it, will change the world. And what's really made me much more bullish on Bitcoin is, if you would have asked me in 2011, do you think people will start using Bitcoin? I would have said, I don't know. We're going to see, because no one was really using it back then. It was just sort of a novelty. This is interesting. People were looking at it. You could barely buy anything. You could buy with other people who knew about Bitcoin at the time, but there was no websites or no places you could buy. And today you can buy almost anything on Earth with Bitcoin in one way or another, including outer space flights with Virgin Galactic. You can buy almost anything, really, if you look around. You can buy hotels on Expedia.com. You can buy flights on certain sites. I'm sure Expedia will soon do flights as well. Overstock.com, through various means. You can buy anything on Amazon.com via Bitcoin, but it's one step removed at the moment. They don't accept it directly, but you can do that through things called gift cards and things like that. I'm massively more bullish now, and just seeing, as you've seen, Megan, we've been to many Bitcoin conferences together, the passion and the amount of incredibly intelligent people who are working diligently to make this technology advance is really heartening, and it's pretty much unstoppable. It's the human spirit has been rekindled. I compare the advent of Bitcoin to the advent of the internet. When I first saw the internet in 1993, I said this is a complete evolution in communications. And when I saw Bitcoin, it didn't take me long before I realized this is a complete evolution in money and banking. And soon, based on that technology, it's going to become an evolution in almost everything that we know today.
Do you think Bitcoin will ever see some comparable competition? Because right now, Bitcoin is just the leader of the pack in cryptocurrencies. And a lot of people will say, whether or not it's Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is here to stay. So do you see anything that might change? There's going to be so much change. This is one of the most exciting things. It's sort of like being around the internet in 1993, 1994. Do you think there might be something more than Yahoo or what was the old one that you're too young to remember? AOL?
AOL's one, and there was like a search engine called, I think, Alta Vista that used to be the number one, and people wondered, will there ever be anything more than this? Yeah, of course. How it evolves, though, I have no idea. Bitcoin is malleable. It is changeable. So as new technologies come along that improve on Bitcoin, that can be actually incorporated into Bitcoin. So who knows? It's very interesting. I'm not a big altcoin speculator, although I did buy some dark coins after certain events and speculated on them for a few days and made some money and then lost some money all within a few days. And that's the way it goes in that market. It's a wild west. But for people who like trading and speculating, it's definitely interesting. If that was my real skill, which it isn't, I'm not really a trader. I've never traded. It's just not something I do. And when I try to do it, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But there are some people who really like trading. They spend all day trading stocks. I think they should look into trading the cryptocurrencies. It's a very volatile market, and that's, of course, where big money can be made if you're smart.
And recently there was an interview with the Zappos CEO, and he was talking about how Bitcoin could replace gold. So do you think that is a possibility for it to replace gold as some sort of storage of wealth?
I think if you look into the future, maybe a few decades, it is possible. I'm not sure. We're going to have to see how it all develops. However, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And I think with things like the NSA and with the government really talking about there's going to be an EMP attack, electromagnetic pulse attack. And usually when the U.S. government warns of something, it's actually a threat. And so if an EMP attack happened, it would actually shut down the electricity grid pretty much continent-wide if they wanted to. So there's risks in everything right now, and that's what I was saying earlier. And so that's why I own both precious metals and cryptocurrencies. I'm definitely more weighted towards precious metals, and that's because, in my opinion, if Bitcoin does really expand and really reaches its ultimate potential, it'll probably be worth, I've done some calculations, around $1 million of Bitcoin in today's dollars if it actually takes over from fiat currencies. And if it doesn't, and if there's some sort of problem or hack or something that's unexpected that no one expects, it could go to zero. And that's the difference between Bitcoin and gold and silver. Gold and silver, I don't see going to $1 million in today's dollars ever. It can easily go to $1 million in nominal dollars, but at that point, a Big Mac would probably cost $10,000 or $20,000. But it also doesn't have the downside. I don't see any time in the near future where if there's a major monetary or economic problems, that if you own some gold and silver, that you won't be able to use them and get good value for those coins, almost no matter what. So I think they're symbiotic at this point. I think they both have pros and cons, and I think they're both places that people should be looking at being in.
All right, Jeff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Is there anything in particular you're working on at the moment that we should keep an eye out for? Any websites we should be visiting?
Well, just as usual, dollarvigilante.com. As for what I'm working on, I'm trying to free the human race. It's a tough job. Can't do it all myself. I hope some people join us. And that's about it. Just keep busy and keep trying to do the right thing and keep fighting.
Right. Well, yes, you have a huge task at hand then. But yeah, thank you so much again for your time today. We really appreciate your insights.